Welcome to SorWil Solutions, where we talk about what's going on in our community and the things that are happening around us. I'm Joe Wilson, CEO of SorWil Technology Solutions. I'm here with Ken Miller, one of our local public information officers, and we're here with Jermaine Wilson, city councilman for the City of Leavenworth, local celebrity, man of the town. Thank you. Thank you for coming.
Yeah, my pleasure. Glad to be here.
We're excited to have you. You've got a great story.
Yes,
You've done a
sir.
lot of things. We've talked about them. You and I have had a number of conversations. I often call you a unicorn
Yeah.
because of the things that you've done. You talk about your past. You don't hide from it, and so we see the changes and the differences that you're making in your life and in other people's lives. Can you talk a little bit about where you've come from and how you've gotten to where you're at?
Yes, sir. So I actually grew up in Leavenworth, Kansas, and Leavenworth has been home for me. I was exposed to crime and violence at an early age. 7 years of my life I spent incarcerated. Growing up, I struggled with insecurities. I wanted to be like everybody else just so I could fit in. And so that led to a life of crime, indulging off into drugs at an early age. 11 years old was the first time I did drugs. The age of 12 was the first time I ever committed a crime. And at the age of 15 years old, I committed a robbery charge and was sentenced to 2 years in juvenile corrections. I tried to escape, failed in the attempt, and was sentenced to an additional 2 more years. And so I lost myself trying to be like everybody else. And during my time of incarceration, I was still searching for acceptance. And so I ended up joining a gang just so I can try to fill that void that was inside of my heart. But needless to say, that fake love wasn't true fulfillment, but it provided a sense of temporary love that I had yearned for. And so during that 4 years, I learned how to be a better criminal. That's what I would say. And because once I got released with the same mentality, the same mindset, and went back to the same neighborhood and surrounded myself around the same people. And because no one that I surrounded myself with was working, I ended up starting selling drugs, started doing what everybody else was doing. I became addicted to the drugs as well. God tried to get my attention by blessing me with the son, my beautiful, my wife today, which was my girlfriend at the time. She wanted what was best for me. I just didn't want what was best for myself. And before I realized it, 18 months had went by. That after I served those 4 years, I ended up catching a drug charge. And this time I was sentenced to 3 years in prison for possession of narcotics. And my son was 8 months old. And that's when, while I was sitting in my prison cell, I wanted something different. I didn't want to make the same mistakes that my father had made. I didn't want my son to walk in the same footsteps that I had walked in. And I realized while I was in my prison cell locked down 23 hours a day, I couldn't undo what had been done, but I had an opportunity to do something that's never been done. And that was to break the cycle of crime and incarceration. So I committed to myself. I wasn't going to leave prison the same way that I came to prison. And that's when I joined Prison Fellowship and started learned how to become a better citizen during my time of incarceration. Found my faith, gave my life to Jesus, became a Christian. And that's when I started preparing myself where I wanted to go. I knew I was going to be successful and not the statistics because I was planning to succeed in life.
So you make that
Yes,
journey, you
sir.
get out, you're on the right path. What leads you to politics?
I started serving the community just because I wanted to give back to a community that I had taken away so much from. And my wife and I, we always had a heart and a desire to serve the less fortunate because God had blessed us and gave us a second chance at life. And we saw in our community that there was a huge need when it came to youth not having activities. We had a growing homeless community. And so we were just being obedient to God, just started serving people, meeting people where they're at. Our church gave us an opportunity. They blessed us and helped us and put us in a position to be able to serve. And so as we're encountering and engaging people, we're able to help meet their needs by serving them. And then we just prayed and asked God, like, what is it that you want us to do? We noticed that there was a divide in our community, and it was happening across the nation. It was police versus citizens. There were so many organizations being established that was creating more separation than unity. And that's when God gave us the words that we need to become more united as a community. We knew that the goal was to establish trust with our law enforcement. In order to do that, we had to be that bridge to connect the citizens and law enforcement together. And with our Unity in the Community organization, that's what we did. And so now we're serving with law enforcement, doing outreach events, basketball events with the kids, and people that attended the events, they noticed the impact that Unity in the Community was having. And that's when people started asking a question. You ever thought about getting involved in politics?
So what was the first year that you were on the Leavenworth City Commission?
Yeah, 2015 was the first time that we did Unity in the Community. 2017 is when I stepped off into politics.
Okay. So 2017, we're in 2025 now. I think it's fair to say we all see it as kind of like ebb and flow, you know, whether you're talking about who's in power or what the prevailing attitudes are. So we're into 2025 now. You're sitting on a five-member commission. You're not the mayor anymore, but you're a member of the commission. Were you surprised moving forward into 24 and into 25 what you've seen, not only of Leavenworth, but really the state and nationally? We're kind of going back a little bit. I think some people would say we're going back a little bit. How do you perceive that?
Well, when I very first stepped off into politics, the goal was people over party. Party wasn't being promoted as much as it is now in the years before. But we were able to connect with people, and people wanted to see people that look like them, that experience what they experience. And that's how I was able to connect with people, because I was focused on the needs of people rather than the needs of the party. And now where we're at today, I think people are more focused on the party, the needs of the party rather than the needs of the people. And so I think that's why we're back at having this divide that we are.
How frustrated are you about that?
Well, it's frustrating just because, I think we overlook individuals that have the heart and desire to serve, and that's qualified simply because they love people. A lot of those individuals are missing opportunities just because our parties are heavily endorsing individuals and putting their person in position rather than the person who has the heart and the connection for the community in that position.
What I think is really interesting, and having been in law enforcement, you and I interacted at some point during your past. From my perspective, it's hard to trust. I served in corrections. You see that revolving door. You see people coming around. That's why I say you're a unicorn, right? You embrace your past. You've walked away from it. Most people hide from that. As you were running for politics, how difficult was it to overcome that past and the fact that people didn't throw that in your face? Did that come out right away? Did that come out during the campaign?
Yeah, and so I learned a long time ago, the moment you forget where you come from, you'll forget where you're going in life. And as I was running and I was sharing my story, there were so many people that connected with me because they have a loved one who's incarcerated, or they experience some type of struggle, incarceration, or drug addiction in their life. And so they felt hopeless just because they didn't have an outlet, or they didn't think they could be supported, or they always thought they were the only one that was going through that struggle. But to see me overcome it and to be in the position where I was, and to be able to going toward in the position, it gave them hope and inspired them to know that just because they made a mistake in their past, it doesn't define who they are. As long as they have breath inside of their body, they still have an opportunity to succeed in life. And so it didn't come up during the primary election about my past being a problem until I came in first place, and in first place in the primary election. That's when people was like, man, who is this guy? Now all of a sudden my past is a problem. People were starting to question, will he be able to be fair? He's going to be overseeing the budget. Is he going to have a heart toward the law enforcement, or is he going to lean more toward individuals who have crime? And that's when, all these articles was coming out to the Leavenworth Times, but then Leavenworth Times had made mention of an article where I was truthful about my story. I never hid from my past. And so that's when people begin to become hopeful, and they realize, man, if this man is being transparent about his past, where he's come from, this is the type of individual we need, because this is a man of integrity.
You've gotten national attention.
Yes, sir.
I've seen the stories, newspaper, television. How much did that aid you? Not only spreading the word of what you're spreading, but also personally and politically. You called him a rock star when he came in, but I think you are known. How much does that help you politically? And I've got a second part to that question. And we've talked before about maybe your future in politics. Maybe even more interesting to me is how are you helping others in the community that you know who maybe need a little helpful push? How are you growing the next crop of people that are going to be Leavenworth city commissioners, maybe state reps, maybe state senators?
Yes, sir. So one thing that I love about being in this position, I'm able to be a voice for the voiceless, and I'm also able to connect with individuals and help individuals to see that just because you made a mistake, that's not who you are. We're not defined by our mistakes. We've all made mistakes in life. And so just being able to share my journey, my experience, work with the prosecutors, trust is established with the county attorney, Mr. Todd Thompson, as well, law enforcement. We have an annual expungement that we do every year. And so for individuals who have criminal backgrounds that made mistakes, who may not have the resources to move on with their life, this is something that we do as a community. We provide these expungements, connect them with lawyers to be able to help them to move forward with their lives. So I'm able to bring hope to individuals and just encourage them to become, great citizens, leaders in their communities, mothers and fathers, and move forward with their lives and not just be stuck in the past. Regardless of what society may hold against you, God forgives you. You forgive yourself. Move on with your
Who
life.
are we going to see as the next Jermaine Wilson locally?
I think the individuals that embrace who they are, embrace their past, realize that their purpose is greater than their pain, and the individuals that say, "Yes, I can," and "Yes, I will move
Have you
forward."
seen people that you say that man or that woman is on a path to where I could see them running for political office because they share a lot of the same values that you do?
Yes,
Are there
sir.
people
Yeah.
like that?
Yes, sir. There's people like this in the community. There's people across the nation. So since my story's hit national attention, so many people have reached out to me, got their criminal records expunged, ran for public office. Some have succeeded as city councilmen. And so, knowing that it wasn't just about me, God used me to be able to be the key to unlock or open doors for other individuals, that has been fulfilling more than anything. But yes, there is many more Jermaine Wilsons. Yes, there is many leaders, maybe the next president, you know what I mean? I am a firm believer that whatever it is that you set your mind to, you can truly accomplish it.
Two things. First, you've told me this story in the past, and I want to kind of relay that here of how difficult was it to gain acceptance from local law enforcement? You kind of told me a story of what you went through, and then secondly, you have a story recently of an expungement that you
Yes, sir.
experienced.
Yeah. Yeah, and so I'm the type of individual, if you want change, you have to be the change. If you want to connect with people, you have to meet people where they are at. And so when I called Chief of Police and Pat Kitchens and I told him like what was pressing on my heart, he opened up his doors. He listened to me. We got together. We worked together. So as we were serving consistently, trust was being established with him. Trust was being established with other law enforcement officers in this department that knew me back then. And so they knew me back then. They see what I was doing at this time, and they see that I'm being consistent when it comes to serving the community. Trust was established over time. And so, word of mouth is the best advertisement. When a person says, like, man, that's a good person. I know where he came from. I love what he's doing now, and I see where he's going. That has really, really, really sparked and inspired change in the community, and trust was established that way. And recently, I just got my juvenile record expunged. I didn't even know that it was a hindrance, with some things that my wife and I was trying to accomplish with the daycare. And just because I had personal felony, I did the robbery charge that blocked me from being able to open up a
Mm.
daycare.
Mhm.
But I realized that, that expungement just wasn't about the daycare. Because I asked God, I said, God, what are you trying to teach me in this moment? I done got government clearance, worked on Fort Leavenworth, been to the Pentagon. And I realized once again, somebody else needed to experience what I was going through. Literally, a couple of weeks after I said that prayer, got a phone call out of the blue. And this individual said, man, I thank you for answering this call. He said, man, I've called many people. You're the only one that answered this call. And he said, man, my juvenile record needs to be expunged and it's hindering me from getting jobs as an adult. What can I do to get this expunged? And I was able to share with him, I'm going through this process now. And thank you for calling me because I asked God, what is it that you're trying to show me and who needs to learn from this? And so, full circle, once again, now I was able to reach back to him and say my record has been expunged. Juvenile record was expunged January the 2nd, 2025.
Yeah, congratulations.
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
Appreciate
yeah,
it.
definitely, definitely. So what's the future hold? And I'm the guy that's asking a lot of the political questions. And I remember we had this
Yes, sir.
conversation
Yes, sir.
before, and I you told me you're an independent, you're
Yep.
not a Republican, you're not a Democrat. But are you looking at any other races, maybe beyond the city of Leavenworth?
I'm gonna be honest with you. I learned a long time ago not to be pushed by people. I wait till God called me into that position. And so at this particular time, I do not have any political aspirations. I'm going higher. Will I close that door completely? Nah, because you never know. Jermaine Wilson might be the first African American governor of Kansas. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh,
And
there's
so
your
with,
headline.
yeah, with
Yeah.
God, all things are possible. Once again, I love serving. I love helping meet the needs of people. So whatever it is that God has for me, when he calls me, I'm gonna say yes to the calling.
What is the atmosphere, or what has to be happening here to get you to consider that more? And I realize that you would want a calling from God
Yeah.
to help push you in that direction. But what do you need to see in the environment? And I'm talking about the political
Mhm.
environment, the cultural environment, that would make you think, I'm going to start thinking about running for something else.
Yeah, I tell you like this, when there's been so much division to the point where I'm not able to sleep at night, uh, I don't have peace with what's going on in the community, that's when I'll pray. And it's God, like, is this my time? And, just like back then, it was obvious that our community needed to be united. And so, and everywhere that I went, the call was there, people, the encouragement, the support was there. And so I'll know just because, one, I'll feel it in my heart. Then two, my wife will confirm it. And then, like I said, I'll definitely ask my kids. But when I'm not able to sleep, not able to have peace with what's going on in the community, I think that'd be a wake up call for
Who
me.
else is asking you besides me?
I got everybody. I got so many people asking me, and what I do for Prison Fellowship, I advocate. I travel across the nation, sharing my story, advocate for second chances. I'll be in DC next month. I'm at the end of this month, and so I'm always speaking to legislators, the lawmakers, just because it's so many people that have something to offer. They just need a platform. They need a seat at the table, and not just a seat. Their voices need to be heard at the table as well.
Now, from a city commission
Uh-huh.
standpoint, you're dealing with a lot of issues. I've watched a number of the city commission meetings. We're seeing high drug use in our
Yeah.
community, seeing a lot of homelessness. Um, I have always said many times we're all one or two decisions away from being in a poor situation like that. But the city commission has taken a lot of heat
Yeah.
recently. People coming to the commission, going through these long diatribes of what are you doing? How have you handled that, and what have you done to help address some of those issues?
Anytime that an individual comes up to me and complain about a problem, I take time and I listen to them. And as they get done speaking, I ask them, what is the solution to the problem? Do you have a solution to offer the problem? When the individuals say they don't, then I encourage them. I said, just like for the homeless community, I said, have you been to the homeless shelter? Have you seen the need at the homeless shelter? They need volunteers. They need resources. If you haven't been there or experienced being homeless, man, you can't just complain about an issue, because right now we know what the problem is. People need homes. Rent is extremely high. People need to be heard. People need to be served. But how can you get involved? How can you complain without getting involved? If there's a problem, hey, try to help create a solution to the problem. And so I don't have all the answers, but one thing that I do, I listen to individuals, and I'm willing to work with individuals who's willing to help work to make the community better as well.
Even with people who are angry, if you spend time with them, I think it turns out to be a net positive
Yes,
for
sir.
them and for you.
Yep. And a lot of times, people may not necessarily want you to fix their problem, but they at least want you to listen to their problem. When you take time and listen to an individual, one, you're showing them that you care. And then two, you're letting them know that you're willing to do what you can to help assist. If it's nothing, at least you tried by listening.
Is there anything that you can talk about that the city is doing to try to address some of these issues?
At this particular time, I think right now we have a new city manager. We got a new mayor as well, Holly Pittman. And I think right now at this time, just really trying to give him time to get in position just so he can become comfortable and familiar with what's going on with the city. But the strategic communication part is very imperative. We have so much good going on in the community, and a lot of times people don't see it because from the city, we don't talk about it enough. And so I think it's important that we become better communicators from the city with what we're doing so people can know that their resources, their taxes is being used for positive things in the community as well too. I know right now fentanyl is a huge problem, and so our officers are now carrying Narcans just to be able to to be present to help assist if there is an overdose at the time, and law enforcement is the first one on the scene. And so we're doing what we can. It's an ongoing problem. I'm a firm believer politics can only do so much, but it's the people in the community that can do even more greater things once we put our differences aside, put our heads together and resources together, and work together in our community.
All right, so help us out here. Tell me something that's good going on in Leavenworth right now that Joe and I and the Leavenworth Times may not know about.
Big Brothers and Big Sisters is a program, mentoring program, one-on-one mentoring program. This was established 2 years ago. We were able to take ARPA funding dollars and invest into the kids in our community. There were so many people talking about there was no programs going on in the city. There was no after school programs, no mentoring programs for the youth. So the youth are doing drugs, they're committing crimes because there's no outlet. Now we have this mentorship program, which helps assist with this by getting kids connected with mentors and mentors, that are able to show individuals a different perspective on life. They may come from a single family home, but this mentor is able to connect them or introduce them to their family. But it's really about investing in the future. When I very first came into politics, it was really about investing in the youth, giving them something to do. Because if there's no investment in the youth, then there's no hope for our future. And so this is one of the things that's been going on for a few years. It's successful and it's continued to goes on, but we need mentors. We need men to step up to be mentors for these young kids in this community.
It's amazing the work that you do and all the, but at the same time, all the grief you get. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a difficult job. People don't make it easy. Everybody always has something to criticize. We want more. We want to solve problems, but we want to do it with less taxes. What is the approach that the commission has taken on the whole tax issue and how they're helping to solve some of these problems?
So once again, it goes back to that strategic communication. When we exceeded revenue neutral, if we wanted to remain flat, we told them these are the options. Are we going to close this program? The community center could potentially close. The pool can potentially close. And so we put a survey out there for individuals to see what the options were. When people realize, hey, for a few extra bucks, for this year, I'm willing to pay that to keep these services going on in the community. So we wanted to be strategic with our communications and let people see what was at stake. When people seen it, then they were able to be comfortable with it. So once we exceeded revenue neutral, I did not get one single complaint because people were aware what was at stake and they were willing to make the extra investment just to continue these services.
Yeah, it's funny, and this is minor compared to the way you just described it. I work for the city of Lansing, and Waste Management is our trash hauler, and they just told us they're going to raise our rates for recycling, and but they'd also raise them less if we went to fewer pickups per month. And all of the feedback we've gotten, which surprised me a little bit, and I think it surprised everybody on staff, is that people are willing to pay the extra money to keep the services the same. They like their services. So it's not always about, oh, you have to lower taxes, you have to lower rates. Sometimes if you can explain it, strategic communication,
Yes, sir.
you'll be surprised sometimes that you'd see what people are willing to pay more for.
Yes, sir. I agree with you wholeheartedly.
Yeah.
Appreciate the conversation. This is kind of the segment where we turn and we go a little bit lighter now. All that deep talk.
I'm
And
not
we
going
talk
first
about
this time.
what's on your
I don't want
mind.
to go first this time. You go first this time.
So recently I've been thinking about the weather. It is so cold out there. And, I had moved to New Jersey for about 5 years. Not nearly as cold out there, not nearly as warm. It shocked me the first year we were out there. They closed the schools down for 90 degrees, and I'm like, man, in Kansas we don't do that. So I've been appreciative of my time there. Certainly didn't miss the weather here in the absolute bitter cold. And the number of times that I've slipped on the ice in front of our office. All right, Ken, what's on your mind?
Well, I have gained an appreciation. I turned 61 last year. I'll be 62 in April. Yeah. And as I get closer to retirement and things like Medicare, I never had an appreciation for how complicated and how much you have to be on top of paying for insurance, making sure your pharmaceuticals are in line, seeing if there's it's complicated. And I guess I never realized that and didn't pay enough attention to people who told me that it was complicated, and I'm finding that out firsthand. So I completely understand people who are frustrated with just dealing with the healthcare system, because I'm starting to feel some of that frustration myself.
So I am super, super excited about the year 2025. This upcoming December the 9th, 2025 will be my 15th freedom anniversary. And I'm also going to be looking to launch my book. It's going to be called From Lawbreaker to Lawmaker. And then this is also my last year in politics. So it's kind of bittersweet. I'm excited about the next chapter of my life. But, as you close one door, God's going to open up another door. And so before this political door closes, I want to make sure that the right person is put in my position to take my seat. And I don't think there's a better candidate than another Mr. Wilson.
Oh,
Mr.
wow.
Joe Wilson.
Did you know this was
You
coming?
know what I mean?
No idea.
And so, when you were asking me that question, is there somebody else I believe that would be a great candidate that could be the next, Jermaine Wilson, but, just keep the Wilson last name,
Yeah.
but Joe Wilson.
There you go.
And the only reason I say that, just because, he has a heart and the desire to serve the community, loves connecting with people over party, and he loves to meet people where they're at. When I first connected with them, that was the thing that I loved most about him. He didn't wear any specific titles on his shoulders. He just wore the love of God and just a heart and desire to serve. So I just appreciate you for that.
Thank you very much. That's very kind. I was not prepared for that.
So it's going to be a great year, 2025, and looking forward, to our community growing, becoming better. We got a new mayor. Very excited about her, Holly Pittman.
Yeah,
It's
shout
very
out to Holly.
influential, very influential in the community. Love working with her. She's family. And so just looking forward to the great things that's going to come.
She's also an upcoming guest on this podcast.
She
too,
is.
surprisingly enough.
She will be on the
Shout out, Holly.
I want to hear more about the book, though.
Yeah, so it's my story, my life story, where I came from, where I'm at, where I'm going, just everything that I experienced, the ups and downs, the trials. People get a chance to, as they're reading the story, they realize it's a love story within my story. Me and my wife, Jessica Wilson,
Wow.
we first met at 14 years
Oh,
old.
wow.
Oh,
And
wow.
so for those who never saw the movie The Notebook, I encourage you to go watch The Notebook. And you will see some similar, connections as you read my book. But overall, it's about, inspiring hope, inspiring change, letting people know, your dedication will determine your destination in life. It's not about where you've been, where you're at. It's about where you're going in life. And so, it's definitely worth the investment, encouragement, and support. It's a good, easy read for the kids. And so most of all, like I said, if you need to be encouraged and inspired, this is a great book.
Now, Jermaine, I heard you say you're closing the door on politics, but you're not locking the door on politics.
Hey, there
Is
you
that
go.
right?
Hey, you heard it.
Is
You
that
heard
right?
it.
Okay, all right, all right.
Good.
Okay, I'm listening.
Yes,
I'm
sir.
listening.
Are you self-publishing? Is there a publisher out there that's
Yeah,
reached
so I'm
out?
actually going with Streamline Books.
Wow.
William Servants, and like I said, great friend of mine. Him and we met in Atlanta, but the funny thing is he lives in Johnson County.
Oh,
Oh my gosh.
And so, but yeah, so it's going to be great and very excited, very excited.
And when should we look forward to that?
So you will start seeing announcements in November,
Okay.
but December the 9th.
Is when it's
So
released?
is the book written?
It's
and
already written.
It's written and
Yeah.
it's being edited and
Yeah, it's being edited.
produced.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, so I wrote the
Wow.
book. I completed the book like 5 years, but it's a process.
Mm.
You know,
Wow.
I thought I had, Yeah, it's a process. I thought it was done, it was completed, but of course, it was still being rewritten. There were some different events that had occurred, and that's going to make the book even more inspiring. So,
All right, good deal.
I want to say I do appreciate your TikToks on words of inspiration.
Yes,
I see
sir.
those on a pretty regular basis.
Better record them now because TikTok might be going away.
That's true.
Yeah.
That would have been worth the topic of mine.
It's another one.
Thank you for joining us with SorWil Solutions. I do want to give a shout out to Interfaith. We are helping them collect funds for some technology upgrades. So if you have a heart to give, or you haven't given yet, or you're considering giving, please think about their GoFundMe campaign. SorWil Solutions, where we talk about what's going on in our community. Thank you.